Welcome to Live Life on Purpose with Jose Feliciano with Feliciano Financial Group. In this podcast, Jose explains that money is just a tool to achieve the things you want in life, a tool to make the decision to live life on purpose. He draws from years of experience to demonstrate that when your money aligns with your goals, you can live a purposeful life. Because when your vision is clear, your decision is easy.
Hello and welcome to Live Life on Purpose with Jose Feliciano. Good morning, Jose. How are you?
Doing great. How about you?
Oh, I'm doing fantastic. It has been too long since you and I have spoken. I'm excited to get back to recording with you on these podcasts. And I'm really excited because today you have Jeff Feliciano on a microphone in another office. You guys are doing a little bit of social distancing there, but he's in the office. I'm excited. Welcome to the show, Jeff.
Hey, thank you. It's good to be here.
And I think that everybody else would notice on this podcast as well. You guys have a similar last name. Very, very similar, in fact.
Don't tell anyone.
Don't tell anybody else, yeah. Jose, why'd you bring Jeff on the show today?
You know, he handles the investment side of our business, and he's the vice president of our company. Of course, more importantly, he's my brother.
Nice.
He's been in the business 25 years. He's a certified financial planner, and we believe in a team collaborative approach, and
Yep.
He's really the top guy that handles the investments. He's very detail-oriented. So I wanted to have him on the show because I think it's great to have a couple of people on the show to, talk about our process and things that we want to cover today.
Yeah, absolutely. What a blessing it is to have family that works well together and can do tremendous work together. And I know that's what you guys do. And I'm really excited about the topic today. And we're really diving into what the client experience looks like when somebody works with your team. Are you guys ready?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I want to add one quick thing is
Sure.
that, we all do have our unique abilities of what we do best. And in our firm, we try to get everybody to be at a place where they are great at what they do. And so it's really important to me to have the experts come on the air.
Yeah, absolutely. Jeff, that's a big buildup. You got a lot to meet up to in these expectations. He's really sold you here. I'm excited to meet you. I'm excited to have this conversation. And I'm going to direct the first question to you, really. When we talk about the client experience, we're talking about from the very, very first start. So let's say somebody's listening to this podcast right now and they say, you know what, I want to reach out and talk to these gentlemen. I want to see what this team does. From that very first phone call, what does it look like to engage your office?
We realize that every decision we make with money usually impacts everything else. We find that most people struggle with really all the decisions that they make with their retirement plans, investment accounts, taxes, insurance, wills, trusts, pension plans. So what we've done is essentially created a team of specialists to help with the intent to help really organize and simplify the process so people can just focus on the things that are important to them.
Nice. All right. So I make the phone call. I call up and who do I talk to?
You'll get to one of the financial advisors. We have 5 in the office. But depending on the situation, depending on what's important to the person, what they're trying to accomplish, we try to match up the appropriate advisor to that situation and what they're trying to do.
Okay. So what do you mean by that? Match them up. So it depends on what I'm needing. So maybe I'm looking at Medicare, right? Maybe I've got some Medicare issues, and so you'll have somebody that can help me with that. Or what if I'm 40 years old and I'm like, okay, I really, really got to start or do a better job of planning for my retirement? Are you saying that you have people that would answer those different types of questions depending on what they're calling in for?
Yeah, we do. I mean, if it's topics specific, we'll get them to the right department. But for the most part, when someone calls in, they have various things that are important to them. So we try to engage with them over the phone, find out what's important to them, find out what they're trying to accomplish, and then, in a sense, I guess, go from there.
Okay. All right. So you've gotten me to the right person, and I'm talking to them now. What is my next step? What are they going to ask me to do?
Well, there's a few steps to that. At the end of the day, we're going to walk them through a process because, like I said a little bit earlier, the intent is to really help people get organized and just simplify their process or the process so they can focus on the things that are important to them. Different things are important to different people, whether it's retirement planning, whether it's the investment management, insurance-related issues. Sometimes it's taxes or wills or trust. But the fact that different things are important to different people, we have to understand their big picture, what they're trying to accomplish, so we can figure out or help create what's the plan based on what they're trying to accomplish.
And Jose, you and I have spoken before, just even off air, about kind of that discovery process that you use to really find out what people need, because like Jeff said, there could be multiple things that we need to cover. Tell me a little bit about that discovery process. How do you ask those questions?
Well, one thing we realize that when it doesn't matter what the phone call is, if it's a college education or somebody's approaching retirement, there's decisions that they need to make. And everybody, we realize that everybody's, when they do call in, everybody's just wanting to make smart choices with their money.
Yeah.
We always do start off with the conversation to understand what's important about money to people or to the individual. And then, of course, that'll open up and tell us what they're trying to accomplish. Once we understand what they're trying to accomplish, what their big picture is, then we know who needs to be involved to make things happen based on where they want to go.
All right. So give me a sample. I know that you have so many examples from all the people that you've worked with, but if I'm coming in and I'm really wanting to shore up my retirement, what kind of things am I going to need to bring you, or for that first meeting, or maybe there's a second meeting? I'm not quite sure how that works. Maybe you can explain it to me.
Yeah, sure. Let me walk through that. When we do get together, we're going to walk through a process called financial blueprinting. And step one, what we'll walk through is just talk about life, what's important, what we want life to look like, kind of a big picture conversation of the things that are most important. Secondly, we'll walk through any goals, objectives, really anything that requires money or planning to achieve. So tangible financial goals that requires any kind of money or planning to achieve. Third, we'll walk through an expectations conversation, because we have found over the years that everyone has an ideal relationship in their head of what a good relationship with someone like us looks like. Making sure that we're clear on expectations, everything's on the table from both sides is an important piece to any good long-term relationship. Then we'll walk through and take a candid look. We'll gather all the data, all the insurance policies, investment accounts, retirement plans, Social Security estimates, wills, trusts, tax returns, whatever is relevant and important to particular families or businesses' financial lives. We'll take a look at that. And it takes us about a week or so to visit with each member on the team, each specialist, for them to provide their input. We'll create a step-by-step plan of action, kind of a financial game plan of what steps we need to take, what issues do we need to address in order to bridge the gap between where they are now and where they ultimately want to be based on the things that are important to them.
Yeah, I love the fact that you were really, really adamant about the relationship piece, right? Because here's the thing, as a married guy who's been married for 26 years this month, it's all about communication, right? And so setting those expectations with your clients or with the prospects, knowing that they do have to put in some work and some effort as well, just like any relationship, I think is paramount. I think that's really, really, I think it's fantastic that you say that right up front. Jose, do you have anything to add to that process?
Yeah, I would say, I always tell people, if you want to be held accountable, we're the ones to work with. We answer 4 things in the planning area: is what emergency fund you should have or how to get it there, what's the best way to reduce or eliminate debt that works for you. We answer 3 questions in the insurance area: is should you have it at all? If you should have it, how much, and what's the right kind for you? And then number 4 is we give recommendations on how to allocate your assets so you have the highest probability of achieving your goals. That's like Jeff said, that takes about a week to put it all together, but we have a team that we want to answer those 4 questions because of the things that are really important, but it has to tie into that individual's big picture because everybody's different.
Yeah.
You might have somebody come in and has to take care of their parents and have to take care of their kids. You got somebody comes in, it's just him and his wife and they want to travel the world, or whatever the case may be, we map it out. When your visions are clear, your decisions are easy. So we want to get that vision, and then we know what's the best route to get from where they are to where they want to be for the reasons that are important to them.
And I'm assuming that after the team has met and they've given the recommendations and the main person who's coordinating all this has put this together, we're meeting again, correct?
Yeah, that is correct, because that's where we kind of recap the things that are important, any goals and objectives, expectations. And what we're looking at is really more of a snapshot of, all right, here's where we are, here's where we want to be, and what is the game plan to bridge the gap between the two for the reasons that are important to them.
And Jose, you spoke just a moment ago about accountability, right? If you want accountability with the people to work with, I'm pretty sure is what you said. I'm assuming at this point, I've got a plan in front of me. We've looked over it. We've talked about it. I've got all the different areas of my life kind of mapped out in the suggestions that you've made. And now it's time for me to do a little bit of work. Maybe you're saying, hey, you need to be putting more into an emergency fund until that's built up to this. Or maybe you're saying that if you want to hit this goal that you have said, that you spoke about, you're going to need to put a little bit more into retirement every month, or whatever those goals are. I'm assuming now that we have some sort of schedule to help keep me on track. What does that look like?
Well, there's a couple of things. Jeff just touched on the expectations conversation that we have. That's so important because everybody's expectations are different. And the thing we want to get across is we can't read people's minds. It's very important that when clients do come in and meet with us, that we're talking about a long-term relationship. So it's got to be something that they're very comfortable with and that we're very comfortable with, because communication is the key. So the expectations conversation, people are going to say, whatever the expectations, but our expectations of people are, we got to do our homework. We only are as good as the information that we have. Jeff also touched on being organized and simplify. When you are organized and you simplify, you do gain a lot of confidence and clarity, and people do take action. And it's a motivating, inspiring process, not a needs-based process.
Yeah, I like the confidence piece, right? Because I think that's what all of us are looking for a little bit more in our lives, especially in areas that we don't necessarily understand everything, right? I don't understand how tax implications work. As a business owner, I'm still trying to figure out all those different things. To have more confidence that I've got somebody that has my back, that's going to hold me accountable to, the goals that I want, and be able to guide me and direct me, that's exciting to me personally, because that's something that I've got to have accountability, or I just get a little bit lazy. I'll be honest.
I would say that Jeff and I, both of our parents are deaf mutes. We talk sign language faster than we could speak. I think clients have an expectation that they want to be given the bottom line, and that's the way we communicate. When we do sign language, is I eat, I crazy, I store. You just get right to the bottom line. So our communication is I think people want to know where they're at, and they just want to be straight up and transparent, and I think it's very important in our industry.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I know that when I think of accountability, I think about a personal trainer. I think about somebody who's going to help me with a diet and keep me on track. How often are you meeting with your clients to help keep them on track and checking in and helping them with that accountability?
There's a couple parts to it, because I think at the end of the day, it's the organization and to be able to simplify decisions and processes and so forth that helps hold people accountable and keep them on track. So obviously, when you look at a family, when you look at a business, there's multiple issues that needs to be addressed for one reason or the other. So walking through and prioritizing those in an order of importance based on what they're trying to accomplish is very important. Keeping things simple and always moving forward, because just like life with families or businesses, things change, goals change, situations change, things that are important in life tends to change over time. We try to stay as proactive as possible with those changes. So we like to get together a minimum of a couple of times a year. Usually somewhere in the first quarter, January, February is a good time to recap progress from the prior year. What's the game plan for the year? What big expenses do we have coming up? What adjustments or steps do we need to take before tax time to make sure we're proactive and as efficient as possible? Somewhere in that third quarter, early fourth quarter, usually people that work for companies, their benefit elections are around that time. We want to make sure there's enough time to maneuver through the tax code or make any adjustments before it's too late, before the end of the year. Take a look at life and what's going on in life so we can try and stay ahead of decisions and how they all tie together. We found to be the most successful.
Well, you brought up another good point, and it goes right back to that relationship. You guys are doing your due diligence when it comes to setting these meetings and checking in and all that. But I'm assuming that you would want clients to be reaching out to you when they have some sort of life event. Like, as an example, I thought I was doing pretty good with my retirement savings and all that good stuff. But then a life event occurred. My wife went crazy because all of a sudden we had grandchildren. And I did not see that coming. Not the grandchildren. We knew that was eventually going to happen, but she went bananas. And so she spends more money on those grandkids than I ever thought possible. So that kind of changes what my retirement may look like. I'm assuming that when a life event occurs, whether that's a job change or going to have some grandkids, or maybe my daughter's going to get married, how often do you want your clients reaching out to you to say, hey, this is something that's coming up, or this is something that's new going on? Do we need to make some adjustments? When do you want them to reach out?
Well, I would say, what we have found through the years that most consumers have a hodgepodge full of stuff that they've accumulated over the years, and they end up with a mind-blowing number of relationships advising them. And the problem is none of those professionals all talk to each other, so things are not tied together. And that's what we mean by organize and simplify. So we want to make sure that we know exactly where we're at, and then know where we want to be, and then we bridge that gap. But being proactive is very important, and we have it scheduled in our system. I think that's something I'm very proud of is our review process, and it's proactive in our system. But if someone needs us in between, they're purchasing a motor home, or they're thinking about buying a ranch in Montana, if they're whatever the case, they want to go take an Australia cruise, whatever the case may be, then we just kind of help them manage the portfolio and which buckets of money to grab, and that's in the most tax efficient way, especially in the retired years. So we're available in between those times that we meet, and we want to be available because I think availability is so important to the consumer.
All right, I'm going to put you both on the spot, and either one of you can take this question. I'd love to hear an example or a story of one of your clients that they had a major life event happen, and hopefully keeping it positive. They had a positive life event happen where they were able to reach out to you, and you guys did need to make some adjustments. What does that look like time frame wise, and how did it come out?
There's two that pops in my mind, two really fun ones. One had a gentleman come in with his wife, and they had some money they got from an oil lease, and you could tell that just their routine was always making deposits, keep saving. When we showed them the roadmap that they were there, so why don't you take a trip of a lifetime?
Oh, man.
And they looked at each other, and I said, really? They said, yeah. And next thing you know, 2 months later, they sent me a postcard from Sydney, Australia. I mean, that's a thrill to me.
Yeah.
Another one was a father-son case that they came in, the son had inherited quite a bit of money and found out what was important to him, what he was trying to accomplish. And he said something to his dad. He never told his dad. He said, I've always wanted to go to Smithsonian in Washington. And his dad looked at him and said, really? And he said, I never knew that. Huh. He said, and he talked about why. Next thing you know, 3 weeks later, they came back from the Smithsonian and had a trip of a lifetime. And it's just that those discussions, when you get real deep about what we really want out of life, I think it's sometimes we don't have those conversations between husband and wife or your family members and stuff like that. But calling time out to really think about what you really want and then have it laid out, and we can help show people how you can get there in the smartest way, I think is the biggest pleasure in my life. I could say that for me.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
Yeah, those are two really, really good examples. And I think that's why it's so important that you have to take a proactive approach to life events, changes that happen in life, because things do change. It's one thing that's absolute is things change in life, and we have to be able to address those, plan for those things. And a lot of times it's creating that safe space for a husband and wife or a family to really close their eyes and think through the things that are important to them and what they're trying to accomplish. And because at the end of the day, it's not necessarily the money that's important. It's what money provides and really the impact that it has on life and what you want out of life. So discussing those things, putting specific investments aside, specific topics aside, and talking about how and where those things impact life becomes the most important thing that we tend to find.
Yeah, very, very well said. Guys, this has been a great snapshot. I know that it wasn't, the full picture by any means of what you guys do and how you work with your clients, but it was a wonderful journey through, from start to having that relationship with your office. What else should I know, or what else should the audience know before we end today's podcast?
One thing I would add, I was thinking about, is there are a lot of do-it-yourselfers that are out there. There's always maybe one member of the family that's handling money, the other one is not. But I really believe that people should find a relationship with somebody out there, because when the do-it-yourselfer, if something happens to that person, the other spouse is in a twilight zone. And that's where the big mistakes that are made that I believe out there. They don't know where to go, what to do, who to trust. And I think it's a due diligence process that spouses need to go through, especially the do-it-yourselfers, to find that relationship.
Yeah. And I'm going to actually challenge you. I'm just going to ask a huge favor, I guess. The do-it-yourselfers are definitely one group, but what about people that are already working with an advisor? Would you guys be willing to take a look at somebody else's plan, even if they're working with an advisor, just to kind of help review it and say, hey, you're on track, or here's a couple things they're missing? Do you guys do that?
Yeah, I think it's important. I think sometimes we can fall into a trap of complacency. And how do you measure progress? How do you measure success? Every now and then, getting a second opinion, somebody to take an objective look of what you're doing, what's working well, what could be improved, can make a world of difference. Because at the end of the day, it's not that you have one shot in life, but sometimes under the scope of every decision that you make with money has an impact on everything else. It's too important of an issue to take for granted.
Yeah.
And I would add to that, like he said, it's planning is basically maybe 6 or 7 pieces to a puzzle. And what I mean by that is you have your tax planning issues, your retirement planning issues, insurance planning, estate planning, retirement planning, I believe I just said, cash flow budgeting, business planning. It all has to tie together. Sometimes people may have one area of that taken care of, but the other areas are neglected and there are holes in the plan. I believe that people should have a second opinion. I mean, you've got to compare it to something. Everybody wants to make smart choices with their money. So we believe that by having all these experts under one roof, it's efficient for the consumer, and a consumer is more likely to get more done, tying everything to their big picture, and everybody can work together. When your visions are clear, your decisions are easy.
Yeah. We talked about the do-it-yourselfers. We talked about those that are also possibly working with another advisor, getting a second look. Before we wrap up today's podcast and I ask you for your contact info, I'm going to make a plea to the listeners out there that aren't doing it themselves necessarily, and maybe they're not working with an advisor, and you're just kind of avoiding the conversation.
Hey, let me add real quick, because we get asked a lot, who do we work best with? And we work best with business owners, retirees and pre-retirees, people that are at or approaching retirement. Life transition could be a loss of a job, changing jobs, looking at a early retirement, as well as professionals, people that have things that are important to them. The more complicated, the better.
And I would add on top of that, because people have questions on their Social Security benefits and what income tax bracket they should be in to take advantage of different situations. You've got health issues that people have, because I believe people care about their health just as much as their wealth. So you have these other factors, but when Jeff just touched on life-changing experiences, there's a lot of decisions that people make, especially when they do retire. And of course, if somebody inherits money from a sale of a business or an inheritance from their parents or grandparents, what do they do now? There's a process that we go through to have them elaborate what they really want out of life, and then we make decisions based on their situation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, if you're new to the podcast, if you're just listening to this podcast, maybe this is your first one or you're into it a couple episodes, you may not know Jose yet or Jeff. Let me tell you, these guys are fantastic. What they do for their clients and for the people that call them up is phenomenal. And so if you're not working with an advisor, you're not really doing it yourself, and you've been avoiding it because there's a lot of moving parts and you don't want necessarily to have anybody peek behind the curtain, there's no judgment. They just want to help you. They want to see what your situation is and help you make that decision based on the processes that they have in place. So please do not be shy about reaching out. Gentlemen, how do people reach out to you if they want to start this discussion?
Go to the website, www.felicianofinancial.com, or they can call us at 903-533-8585.
Fantastic. Jose and Jeff, thank you so much for your time today. This is a fantastic podcast.
Thank you very much. Enjoyed it.
Thank you. Enjoyed it.
You bet. And the last thank you goes to you, the listening audience. Thank you for tuning in and listening to the Live Life on Purpose podcast with Jose Feliciano. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Jose comes out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. This makes it much easier to share these podcasts with your friends and family. Again, thank you so much for listening today. For everyone at Feliciano Financial, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live life on purpose.
Thank you for listening to Live Life on Purpose with Jose Feliciano. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the guest and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Feliciano Financial Group. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.